You don't have one? Well, you know the drill. Come on in. Hey guys, DFG here, Gideon's Flight. I just wanted to take a moment and share something that's on my mind, and it's going to be a little controversial because I know there are going to be individuals who listen to this video and probably going to accuse me of not knowing, what I'm talking about, and I'm okay with that. But I do have some firsthand experiences on this topic. So, I'm going to base my opinions, okay, off of those firsthand experiences, as well as some investigative work that I've done. And then last, a personal opinion again, presumption of what I think all of this comes back to. All right, I'm going to try to bring it all the way back home. So I'm going to talk about Hurricane Dorian. Now, Hurricane Dorian, as you guys know, is currently, well, it's moving now, but for the last 2 days, it's set over the Bahamas, the islands. I want to say it's like 70-something islands over there. I was shocked that there were 74 islands that make up the Bahamas. I think NASA, as you already know, is the capital of the Bahamas. But this is the strangest hurricane I think that I've ever seen in terms of the hurricane's motions and activity. Coming from Louisiana, southern Louisiana, I have been seeing hurricanes since Hurricane Betsy. Now, if I was alive in Hurricane Betsy, and for you guys who know about Hurricane Betsy, you can get a pretty good idea of my age. When I'm talking about, I hadn't even started school yet, but I was alive for Hurricane Betsy and Hurricane Camille, obviously Hurricane, Katrina, and many, many others. So I understand hurricanes, I understand hurricane patterns, because you have to. If you're from Louisiana, especially southern Louisiana, every year is hurricane season for you. Every year, it's just like if you were up north, you would look for nor'easters. If you were in the Midwest, you'd be looking out for tornadoes. I guess if you're in California, I don't know what California looks like. Earthquakes, possibly. But you would clearly, that would be right, earthquakes. So for us, a hurricane is not new news, it's old news. So when we watch a hurricane and we understand hurricanes, then we realize that the forecasters, the meteorologists, those guys are able to predict the path of a hurricane sometimes 2 weeks in advance. They can pretty much give you a general idea of where that hurricane is going to go. Therein lies my concern as it relates to Dorian. Because if you've been following the meteorologist, right, all of last week, you would have saw that the cone of, see if I can do that right, of Dorian was headed across the state of Florida, upper Florida, and it was coming back out into the Gulf, and it looked like it would be hitting somewhere around Destin, Pensacola, Florida, maybe Mobile, Alabama, somewhere in between that area. Now, this was 2 days before Saturday. They had forecasts that's where the hurricane would be going. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we start hearing talk about Donald Trump dropping nuclear bombs inside the hurricane. Now, we know that's silliness, because you would start some kind of nuclear rain shower or whatever and kill every damn body. But he did say it, and he said it twice. Now, Donald Trump is a dumbass. I get it. But he's still the president of the United States. And I'm telling you, when the president of the United States says something, whether you think he's an idiot or not, you need to take heed to that. You need to look and say, okay, where is he going with this? To blow him off is a huge mistake, because he is the president of the most powerful nation on the planet. Donald Trump is one of the most powerful men in the world. So we can dismiss him as idiotic and buffoonish and double talking and a liar and all those things. But the one thing, you can't dismiss him is he is the president of the United States. He may not be your president, but he's the president of the country where you live and you pay taxes, and you will and can be impacted by the decisions that he makes. Okay. So he did say that. But let's move on beyond that. When I look at the cone of that hurricane, and all of a sudden, within a 48 period, it goes from, upper Florida, panhandle of Florida projection. Then all of a sudden, they start talking about, well, it's going to stop. They never really give us clear information on how it's going to stop and why it's going to stop. Of course, I know some of you guys say, well, no, there was a pressure that was coming from the upper Atlantic and they were pushing it down. Okay, so a pressure is going to make it stop. So a high pressure is going to make a hurricane stop in its tracks. Because I don't remember seeing a front coming from the west to the east. Because had a front been coming from the west to the east, they would have known that probably a week or so in advance. And they would have already told you that those two, the front and that pressure from the front and that hurricane would have met right at the Bahamas, and then all of a sudden it would have stayed there, and depending on whether that gave in, the high pressure coming from the west or the upper pressure that was coming from the upper Atlantic, whichever gave in first, that would determine what way that hurricane was going to go. We weren't being told that. Of course, we're being told something like that right now. So you say, okay, DFG, I heard all of that. I still don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay, and then I can understand why you would say that, my friend. All right. What I'm talking about is this. Have you guys ever heard of what they would call, artificially induced in the astronosphere, ionosphere? I think that's how you say it. It's the ionosphere. Do you know that they can artificially induce weather? This country, this nation, probably many other nations too, can artificially induce weather patterns. You do know that, right? Of course you do. And if you didn't know, you know now. They can artificially manipulate weather. They can see clouds, they can move rain clouds, they can make it rain in some places, and they can make it not rain in others. And some of you guys say, what are you talking about, man? They can't do that. Look, I wouldn't say it if I hadn't did some research on it. United States and many other countries have been able to control weather patterns since Vietnam, guys. And that was, the late 60s, early 70s. They were doing things to the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Vietnam, making it rain in certain areas to wash out their trails so they couldn't get weapons and ammunition and things like that to the Viet Cong and some of the other as they were going down south. Now, if you think I'm bullshitting, hey, like I always tell you, go check your own history. Don't sit here and criticize me. You haven't done any work. Then you're going to sound like a fool instead of thinking I'm sounding like the fool. But when you go and check, you're going to find out, damn, he's absolutely correct. So again, now let's bring this thing back. So if you were the president of the United States, the most powerful nation on the planet, right? Over the military, the most powerful military on the planet. And you had all kind of weaponry. Weaponry that would control the atmosphere to some degree. I want to talk about the Space Force, but this is not that. But you have weaponry that can control weather patterns. We already know about chemtrails and all of them. You know that they have programs in place through NASA and other programs that are probably top secret that we know anything about, that we don't know anything about, that they can control that weather. So if you're the president of the United States, and you got to make a decision to allow a Category 4, a Category 5 hit Florida and wipe out, 10, 15 million people, or you're going to stop it because you can stop it until it weakens enough so that you can move it in a northward direction. Well, we already know the answer to that question. And what am I saying to you? I believe that's exactly what happened. I believe the country is using weather technology that we know nothing about to control hurricanes and weather patterns. And if you don't believe it, think back when Hurricane Harvey, back a couple of years back. And remember how Harvey came up the Gulf? Remember it went up to Houston? Remember it just stopped right there? Didn't go anywhere? And then it made a flip, came back out, and then went back up through southwestern Louisiana? And none of you guys thought that was peculiar? You say, okay, no one can predict what a hurricane can do. No one can predict what a hurricane can do. But you can learn patterns based off of observation. based off a history of what a hurricane can do. And what I'm telling you, based off of the history, what a hurricane can do, what you just seen today and the last few days with Dorian, that's an anomaly. And I'm telling you again, what you saw over there with Harvey is another anomaly. And those things just don't happen like that. And I know anomaly is something out of the ordinary. But I'm telling you, this out of the ordinary was influenced by the United States of America, at least from a military weapons, perspective. That's what I'm telling you. And then they made it stop right over the Bahamas, and let me talk to you a little bit about the Bahamas. Now, this is not about race, so don't anybody get in your racial feelings. I'm not saying the United States stopped the hurricane over the Bahamas, because the Bahamas, because there are black people on the island of Bahamas. Now, Bahamas is 85% black. They used to be the Arawak Indians, and then later on they claimed that when Columbus came there somehow or another, which he did go to the Bahamas, but he never set foot on the North American continent, but he did go to the Bahamas. And then they claimed that somehow or another those Indians, just like the Indians here, the Native Americans here, somehow just disappeared. All them black Indians, well, whatever they were, I guess, now they're saying the Bahamas are, what they call them, Afro-Bahamans. All right? Again, but let me tell you something, guys. You can lie about history, but that doesn't mean history is not history. You can manipulate, you can try to hide it, you can fake it, but you still can't change the truth. It's the truth, whether you like it or you try to hide it, it's still the truth. And in time, it always is revealed. So those black Bahamans were Native Americans in the, in the all the way up until the mid 1700s, because that's when, England, Spain went in that area, well, Great Britain, and then it became a colony of Great Britain from 1717 up until about 1964. And then they allowed it to have some international own influence, its own little government, etc. But I digress. So I'm not saying that the United States stopped it there because there were black people there, but I'm sure that didn't make anybody feel somewhat bad about it. You know what I'm saying? If it had to be them or them, I'm sure, looking at the history of Europeans, those in power I'm talking about, they seem to be able to decide on that real quickly, and it's always them when it's up to them. Okay? And let me get down to the last aspect of what I want to talk, last piece of what I want to say. Now, that hurricane was left to sit over the Bahamas and pretty much devastated the Bahamas. All right? And again, I think it was to save the ass of the United States of America, in particular the Floridians. So Floridians, you need to be given a power sign to the United States Air Force. Okay? And the NASA, whoever else controls the skies, the upper atmosphere. You need to be giving them a double thumbs up. And if you're Bahamans, that's what you get for being a neighbor, to, whatever. And the last thing I'll say, I think I might have said that, but I'm going to say it. Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe was an evangelist preacher from the Bahamas. Miles Monroe and his wife died in a plane crash in 2014. The plane somehow has gone from one little small spot to another spot in the Bahamas. The plane somehow miraculously got hit by lightning and crashed into a dump site. And I remember this mean, bitter Christian said that, I don't care nothing about what Miles Monroe had to say, because I was sharing some of his videos. He had some real great videos, guys. You ought to look him up. I don't care nothing about what he had to say. I don't believe in everything. That's why he died and went and got crashed in a dump site. And I can't even say it on camera. I can say it, but I won't say it in terms of my opinion. But here's the last thing. Yahweh is just. He says, vengeance is mine. You follow me? And I shall repay evil for evil. Double for evil. And I will tell you that Bahamas, if you guys had something to do with assassinating that man and his wife based off of the new doctrine, the kingdom of heaven that he was preaching, then you got justice if you had something to do with it. And somehow, I think your government did, and I think that this is Yahweh's way of bringing back the consequences of that evil that was done to that great evangelist, a man who was opening up the eyes for many, many people. Now, that's what I think about Dorian, Bahamas, and last Miles Monroe. Thank you guys for listening.